All right, so most of my videos are not gonna be in the vehicle. I'm letting y'all know that. But I just wanted to talk to y'all. I'm not gonna even say briefly because that last video was 20 minutes long. But I'm gonna just say wanted to talk to y'all about basically what happened to me. My wife said when I did the video while I was in the hospital, she said, "Oh, babe, that video was just ridiculous." So, I was diagnosed as what they consider a borderline diabetic. And it was really because I was approaching becoming a diabetic because of my weight. I got up to, at the time I was like in the 470s, 480, something like that. My max weight had got up to 497, which was basically 3 pounds from 500. That was the biggest and the heaviest I'd ever been in my life. For the most part, most of my life, I was anywhere between 260 and 330. I'm gonna say most of my adult life. And I was healthy for the most part, could move, run, all that stuff. Once I started, I don't know if I consider it letting myself go or what it was, but once I started, and I had bad eating habits then too, but I could just move. I was just a big guy that could move. So not giving that big history. Oh, it's about to start raining. How about that? I'm sitting at the park. That's why I'm in my vehicle. But anyway, back to the story. Started hitting the 400s after marriage. That don't mean I'm blaming my queen, but I tell her this all the time. She fattened me up like a turkey when I got up here in the country. I'm just clowning y'all, but there's so much, me being from New Orleans, there's a lot of differences. You wouldn't think it would be, but there's a lot of differences in between what's considered the cuisine of city people and country folk. We know we cook red beans, y'all cook red beans. Y'all red beans be a little different. Some people say the country cook better. Some people say the city cook better. I ain't here to go back and forth about that. I'll do another video on that one day. Anyway, I got up here, I moved up here. I didn't know what fresh sausage was. I didn't know what pastelaria was. I was like, I didn't know what all this. What's this? And my wife started feeding me that. I was like, oh yeah. Now I already could get down on regular food. That was easy. Oh my God, I started going crazy. So in other words, like I say, over time, I blew up. When I moved up here 16 years ago, almost 17 years ago, when I got married, I was maybe 330, 325, 330, something like that. And I was fine. I ain't gonna lie, but I was fine. Mug. Sexy. But like I said, I was always a big guy, but I was active. So back to what happened. Pumped myself full of all that vitamin C. Went back to what happened was my wife found me in the house. I can't remember if she found me on the floor in the bed, but let me tell you something. This is amazing. My wife is about 5'5". I'm not gonna give her weight. She fine in the mug. She thick though. She 2 something, so she do something. I say that. But my wife is 5'5". I'm 6'5". Okay, and I was 497 at this point. Somehow my wife found me. Either I can't remember it was on the floor or on the bed in the house, because I don't think I was responding to her phone call. She got to the house, found me talking outside of my head because my blood sugar went that high, like I said, 800 something. My wife got me up out of that house somehow to my truck and to the ER. I still to this day say it was nothing but God. Some people be saying, in emergency situations, adrenaline can kick in. I do know that for a fact scientifically, but it was nothing but God. And my wife usually can't move me. I'm like a wall. And this woman got me while I was out of my mind, scientifically out of my mind, to the hospital. They got me to the hospital, and they give you a kind of condensed on it, but not rush it. When I got to the hospital, there was some complications to where, because of my blood sugar going so high, I went into what the medical term is, I believe, ketoacidosis. That's what my body went into. And all I know that came of it was renal failure, and organ failure, which basically my kidneys started failing, my lungs started failing, my heart was pumping just ridiculously fast. So they ended up rushing me from the emergency room around here, that was local, to Thibodeau Regional. Shout out to Thibodeau Regional. These people took good care of me. They saved my life. I got to Thibodeau Regional. They said by the time I got to Thibodeau Regional, with all of these things going on at one time in my body, and me being almost 500 pounds, all of this stuff happening in my body sent me into such a shock. I went into a coma. I would say it was a diabetic coma, I believe. So I went into a coma. I went into the coma. I was in a coma for exactly, I believe, 12 days, when, with my organs failing, and them not knowing if I was going to come out of it, by the 12th day, they had approached my wife and asked her what she wanted to do, if she wanted to unplug me or leave me on life support for a little longer, because the bottom line was they didn't see me making it, because I wasn't breathing on my own. A machine was literally breathing for me. So I was alive, but all my people that, whether you've been in the medical field or whether you just had somebody go through this, you know what I'm talking about, when these people basically come to one of your loved ones and say, especially your spouse, forgive me if I pause for a second in between me speaking, because I can't, imagine what my wife went through. She's told me, I've tried to think about it, but Lord, I can't imagine what my wife went through. But on the 12th day, they approached her about taking me off life support. That woman wasn't letting me go, not like that. So she prayed about it. She had a prayer about it, and she decided to leave me on life support a little bit longer. Like I say, some people, there is no right or wrong decision with that. It's all about how you feel. Sometimes it's about who you believe in, because I've heard of when people are approached about, and your people are in a bad way, and in a bad, what I'm trying to think about, the word. They're in a bad situation. They're in a bad way. They're not in a bad condition. They're in a bad condition at that time, in order for the doctors to come to you about something like that, and talking about unplugging a loved one or taking them off life support. And like I say, the machine was breathing for me. I was not breathing on my own. They said every time they tried to take me off life support, I couldn't do it. I couldn't breathe on my own. Well, 3 days later, because I was in the coma for 15 days. So 3 days later, after being on the life support, they started attempting to take me off, and I fought my way back. Now, this video is strictly going to be about what happened to me. I'm going to do another video about what happened to me, what I went through, I guess what you could say spiritually and mentally while this was going on. But so if some of this seems not so detailed, is because I can only go off what I was told. I was in a coma, or I was hospitalized at the time. I don't know everything that was going on around me. So I'm going off what I was told. I'm going off of medical notes that I read, and I'm trying to condense it, 15th day, I came out of the coma. I couldn't speak. Obviously, I couldn't walk. I was on oxygen. So I was able to breathe on my own now, assisted by oxygen. But the machine, that they had a tube, I think they call it trachea, whatever they call it, that they were able to take that out, because I was able to breathe on my own, but not without having oxygen aid me, okay? So I'm on oxygen. My organs were still, I guess, weak from what they went through, from the shock that they went through, are actually starting to shut down. So I remember being transferred from Thibodeau Regional. Once they got me stable enough to where they knew I was going to have to be in care elsewhere, they did their job. they brought me to Promise in Baton Rouge. And in Promise, I was what they consider bedridden. I couldn't even sit up in the bed. I couldn't go use the bathroom. So basically, I'm gonna be detailed with it, and y'all just bear with me. I had to take a bath in the bed. I had to use the bathroom on myself. I mean, that's just the real. Both ways. Number one and number two. That all happened in the bed. I got bathed by nurses because I couldn't get out of the bed. As time went by, I pretty much spent my time on my back looking at the ceiling and looking at TV. But jumping back, while I was at Thibodeau Regional, I suffered a brachial plexus injury, which is called which is basically, there's a cluster of nerves that runs from your spinal cord to your shoulder, and that's where the cluster meets to go down into your arms and down into your wrist and your hand. These fingers are drawn up because the tendons that are in my arm, they basically started to shorten as time went by, me not using it. And also pressure being on my arm, because by me being such a big guy, while I was at Thibodeau Regional, even before I got to Promise, while I was at Thibodeau Regional, they had certain times where they had to change my body position. And a 500-pound man, you know, being moved, it's not no easy feat, okay? It had got to the point for me where when I saw the nurse come in, you know, I don't know what indicated me maybe possibly using the bathroom on myself, but I had what they call a pressure wound on my backside. It was right above my behind crack. It was about that big. It was a hole that big, and it might have been about as deep as my index finger from the skin into my body. So when they had to change me, they had to clean that hole out to try and keep that clean. I felt every bit of that pain while I was at Thibodeau Regional. And imagine feeling the pain of somebody entering your body, and it's, you know, I couldn't scream because I couldn't speak. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't speak. I was screaming in my head. Oh yeah. But that pain, and then you're coming out of the coma. I can open my eyes, but I still don't even know why I'm in the hospital at this time at Thibodeau Regional. So I just know as time go by, every time I saw that, you know, I'm gonna say like every time I saw that white boy, he would come in and he'd speak to me and he'd talking to me, and I'm like, who are you? Why are you here? And this, that, and other. And then I see him go to the door and do this. He calling in the help because the boy needed help moving me, turning me over so that they can clean me up. Oh my God. Man, that was a pain I can't describe to you. But anyway, so I had that pressure wound on my backside. I had the brachial plexus injury, and at the time, blood circulation in my arm was so bad to it. My family told me that basically from my elbow all the way up here, that whole arm had swollen up and it was black. My fingertips experienced what they call necrosis. These fingertips were black. And it was all just circulation problems, okay? These fingers were drawn up because, like I say, the tendons had started getting smaller, and then you figure all that weight on this side when they turned me over, or they turned me over to that side, or they had to keep me on this side for so long just to clean me. That's a lot of weight on a limb, you know. So either way, I'm at Promise Hospital, getting bathed in a bed, getting changed in a bed. I'm doing kidney dialysis because my body could not clean, my kidneys could not clean my blood on their own. So I had to be on dialysis. They bring the dialysis machine in there to me because I couldn't go to them, and they hooked it up. There's a mark right here. This is where they stuck the tube in for dialysis. They stuck the tube in here, and that would go down across my chest from what I was told, down and then back around into my heart. And that tube would feed into my heart that would pull my blood and filter my blood out of my body, out of this hole, into that machine. The machine would clean it. and then filter the blood back into my body through that hole and through my man. But I tell you, because guess what though, I've always liked science. I didn't know. We always thought that the heart was a muscle, and it's not. The heart is a valve. It's a valve. So little science for y'all. Anyway, kidney dialysis. I don't recommend it as a choice, because man, the feeling of, you would think that you're getting your blood transferred into a machine to clean it and then bring it back out. You think that, it wouldn't, man, the feeling that I would have, I can't describe it, but I'll describe that another time. So I'm going through kidney dialysis because my kidneys can't do it. I'm on oxygen to help me assist with breathing, because I still can't breathe totally on my own. I'm having wound care done to me because of the pressure wound on my backside. And then eventually, I start getting brought to physical therapy just to kind of try to move whatever limbs I had that was left that was actually doing it. Also, I experienced what they call neuropathy in my feet. Neuropathy is basically, in layman's terms, it's like, how when your foot goes to sleep, just picture like it constantly being like that. But at one point it goes from feeling like it's going to sleep to just straight up all in out pain. It's basically nerve damage. So now I have what's a condition called drop foot in my left foot. Basically my foot, everybody, you can hold your feet out like that. If you was to lift up your leg and hold your foot like this, my foot drops like that because of the nerves being damaged in that particular left foot. So I have to wear a brace that goes around, it's called an AFO. It's a brace that goes around my ankle and it goes through the tennis shoe that I'm wearing. And then the strings, the cables pull it up to where my foot can be like this when I step up. And so that when I step the way I would with my right foot. Because if I didn't wear that, every time I pick this foot up, my foot drops, which means if I don't watch when I pick my feet all the way up, I could trip myself, okay? So, so I had that at the time, neuropathy in both feet. Very painful. My feet were, because I hadn't used my feet and hadn't been on my feet for so long, they dried out to where the bottom of my feet looked like a reptile's foot. It was, oh my God. If I find those pictures, I'll probably post them one day, but it was rough. So I go from being bedridden at Promise, when they took me to physical therapy, to do like stuff like just move this arm and work this hand, I'll work this arm out, I'll work out my legs. I couldn't sit up in bed. So they would bring, I don't know the name of it. Anybody that might know the name of this device, they can bring it, but it was like to me, it was like a crane. They rolled the machine in, they took like a pad and they had to turn me over to one side, put it up under me, then fold me over the other side, pull it up from under me, then they would hook it up on 4 ways. It would be from down to my behind all the way to my back. They would hook it up to this machine. The machine would lift me up out of the bed, and then they would roll me over to the wheelchair that they had for me, and the machine would lower me into the wheelchair, and that's how they brought me to physical therapy. Okay, so now I'm in physical therapy there, trying to work out whatever limbs I have. By the time I made it to Promise, I could talk. Couldn't walk though. And like I said, couldn't sit up in bed. They had me to the point where I was pretty much almost about to sit up in bed when I left Promise Hospital. Shout out to them. Y'all touched my life and kept nursing me back to health. Then I left Promise and went to this place called United in Gonzales. I believe it's Sage now. But it was a place called United. That's where they started getting me up out of the bed and had me walking. They put me in a machine that had me walking. For the most part, most of the time I was there, I was using a wheelchair. But then they started putting me in certain devices that could make me walk. They set me like in this machine that would stand me up, and I had to use it to walk. Y'all, some of y'all that follow me, you done seen the videos of it. And I'll post the videos here on YouTube so you can see them as well. Just like maybe like little 2-3 minute videos of me walking. And it's two videos I have. One is the where they put me in that contraption. And I'm sorry that I can't remember the names of these things, but if you're in the medical field and you happen to listen to my story, you know, or follow me, feel free to comment on what it could possibly be. I can always look it up and Google them. But the first contraption, the video they have me in, is they get me out of the wheelchair into this contraption. It's a sling that goes around my behind, and once they hook it up to this machine, then it jacks me up and it literally stands me up. But it's a board that's behind this sling that keeps me standing. But the sling is up under me just in case, you know, I was to lose my balance. And then I just start walking as far as I can. Eventually, after walking in that thing, because it was like torture for me when I first, when you first put weight on your legs again to start learning how to walk again, oh my God, it's balance, you get dizzy. Like jumping back to Promise, when I first sat up in the bed on my own, I couldn't do it for like maybe just 30 seconds because I gotten dizzy. Like, you know, when you haven't done something for so long, you know, that time passes by, you got to get in the routine of doing it all over again. And it was not easy. I was very discouraged, not because of the people around me, because all they did was encourage me. All they did was reassure me, hey, Mr. Huey, it's all right. But to myself, based off of what I knew, now I know why that Bible says, lean not to your own understanding, because just my understanding of how, man, look, I done walked before. Why I can't walk? Or I done sat up on the bed before. I never thought that it would be an exercise for me to stand up, sit down on my couch. Stand up, sit down. That was an exercise for me for weeks when I got home. But anyway, jumping back to United. With United, and I know I'm all over the place. With United, eventually they stopped putting me in that contraption that was making me walk, and they built me my own walker. The way they did it, and it's funny now, when I say built me my own walker, basically I'm 6'5". So like a walker, the little silver walker that you see the elderly people use, or people that can't walk too well use, it was one of those, but because of my arm being the way that it was, okay, and I still had the necrosis in my fingers at the time, my arm had healed far as no longer having the blood clots in it, but still had necrosis on my fingers. So in the video, you'll see that my fingers were wrapped, my fingertips were wrapped. My arm being the way that it was and couldn't be straight, I couldn't put that hand on both sides. I could brace myself with this hand on the walker. They made an extension from that walker up to this arm where I could just lay this arm on it, and that's how I moved myself forward. So by that time, I was walking with a walker. When I left, leaving United was bitter and sweet, because when I was set to leave United, I thought it was time for me to go home. You got to understand, at this time, I hadn't slept in my own bed or seen my own house or even really seen outside since December 2003. It was now February of 2004. I still hadn't been home yet. It was the end of February when I made it to United from Promise. And I didn't leave United until like maybe the beginning of March. So I got to United at the beginning of February. I didn't leave it till like the beginning of March. So now I'm in another facility, not seeing home. So I'm thinking, okay, when I leave United, they tell me, you know, I have a wound vac now, which is basically this little portable machine. Is about this big, look like a little baby. This is what I'm just saying. I'm just saying. About the size of a baby monitor. Not the little one you carry, but the one that sits in the room with the baby. It's about a little box about the size of a baby monitor. And what it does is, it's basically a little vacuum. It had a tube that goes from that box, and it goes into that wound that I told you that was on my backside, into that hole. And it constantly sucks at that hole to keep any infection that was, you know, inside of it, pulling out of it. Because now at this point, when I was in Promise, when, like I said, they came to change me, they came to bathe me. They had a wound care nurse that would come. She turned me on my side. She had, if any yellow tissue, I believe it was, if they saw yellow, that means they had to cut that out. And they also had to clean that wound. You understand what I'm saying? That's when I had felt pain as well at Promise. So now they got to the point where they were cleaning the wound and they were comfortable enough for me to be on a wound vac. So now I had a wound vac with me everywhere I went. So I got to bring that thing with me everywhere. When I'm on a wheelchair, when I'm walking on my walker and all that. So now I'm thinking, okay, they say, well, once we get you to the point where you can kind of move and maybe walk up your steps, at least 2 or 3 steps, then you can go home. So I'm thinking when I leave United, that you ain't going home, you know? Nope. It wasn't even complications. It was just, even though I was progressing with the walking, that wound vac was still doing its job and they weren't comfortable enough for me to go home yet with home health. They felt I still needed to be kind of constantly monitored. So they sent me back to BR to Sage, okay? Their facility out there in Baton Rouge, which I found out later on because I just recently went back and visited them and showed them my progress. It's right down the street from Promise. So literally the first facility I was in was right down the street from the last facility I was at before I went home. I got to Sage. I gotta say this, it was rough for me at Sage for a different reason. Even though I was progressing with my walking, I was getting so good at walking to where I was almost walking with a cane instead of a walker. What was rough for me was my wife could not sleep over at that particular facility. At Sage, my wife could only stay till about 6 o'clock and then she had to leave because that's the way they did it there. And I had a roommate there for the first time in being in those facilities. I had a roommate. So he was at the front of the room when you enter, and then you walk past him and there's a bathroom, and then I'm at the back of the room. And when I tell you, I mean, when I say this, I'm not bad talking anybody because I'm gonna tell people about that. But I'm gonna say, for me, Sage felt like a prison. Not because of how I was treated or none of that, but because it was simple. My wife could come visit me, but she couldn't sleep with me. So, meaning at nighttime, if I woke up with pain or if I just had a bad dream or if something was thrown off about that night, I'm so used to, baby, you know, couldn't do that. Yeah, I got spoiled on that woman. And once again, I'm going to take this time to thank my wife. There ain't nothing anybody understand this and look in my eyes when I say this. Just like right now, nobody, I don't knock anybody's beliefs. I don't knock anybody's faith. I don't knock, I don't knock nothing now. What I'm going to say about me is, right now, there's nothing anybody could tell me about my wife. And there's nothing anybody can tell me about my God. Point blank, period. You understand me? It's just, and when I say that, I know a lot of people might not feel me, or they'll be like, wait, how can you say that or whatever? But a person that's been where I've been, or just been similar to where I've been, or ever had a faith in something, or had to totally depend on something that you didn't think that they could do it. Honestly, I didn't think my wife would ever be able to do what she did for me. And it ain't because I didn't feel like she didn't love me enough, or, this, that, and other. It wasn't that. It was just, one, I never thought I'd put myself in that position, but two, I never thought if that I was in that position where my wife would be able to be as strong as she was for me and her. So, you can't tell me nothing. You can't tell me about my God. You can't tell me about my wife. Don't even attempt to. Okay? So, now that I done got out of that mode, sorry about that. I make it to Sage. I'm progressing with physical. The wound vac is doing the wound vac thing. And eventually, it's funny how we perceive time and how we perceive God's ways. God's ways, somebody can tell me that Bible verse, but I know the way the verse goes, his ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are higher than ours. His ways are higher than man's. And his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So we can't, that's why they don't want you. That's why you're not supposed to lean to your own understanding when it comes to God. He's on his own time. He has his own methods, his own ways, his own reasons for things. You see what I'm saying? So with that being said, and I got the sage and I'm progressing physically, and the wound vac is wound vacking, and life is life. And man, the last day that I left, March 22nd, was the day I came home from Sage. The very last day, I was able to take that wound vac off and never look back at it. But they thought I was going to need it when I got home. I didn't. My wife took the time, the whole time I was in the facility, and learned from every nurse. Watch what they did with me, watch how they handled me, watch how they cared for me, to where my doctors, any doctors that were over me, any registered nurses, any wound care nurses, they had the confidence that my wife could clean my wound now that I was off the wound vac. Why? Because she had dedicated herself to that. And my wife was working at the time too. But I say that to say, I was not only able to get rid of the wound vac my last day in Sage, so I came home without that thing. They tried to send me home with a wheelchair. I said, nah, I can't do that. They said, well, you can't walk out of here unless you in a wheelchair or walker. I said, well, I'll take the walker. There's a video also that I'm going to put on here where you can see me. They expected me to use that walker. When I got out of my car, I told my wife, I'm walking up my own steps, unassisted. I don't want nobody holding my hand. I don't want that walker. I don't need no cane. No, I'm going to walk into my house because it meant that much to me. That's how bad I wanted to be home. You see what I'm saying? And then I get home and the home health starts. You know, my wife has to clean my wound in the morning. My nurse would always check the wound and make sure everything was straight. I'm going through physical therapy with my arm and my hand and my foot and all that. I'm standing up and sitting down, like I say, all these exercises. And then eventually I got into physical therapy with Cypress, who I'm with now, Cypress Physical Therapy. Now currently, I've had all kind of tests ran on me. I've had a nerve conduction test in the arm twice now. In the beginning, when I got the first nerve conduction test and I made it home, I couldn't feel anything below the middle of my bicep. The nerve conduction test is a series of taking a needle about this thick, it would be 4 inches or 5 inches, and inserting it into my body, my arm, all the way from my fingertips all the way up my arm. And it had a, from what I understand, a microphone that ran through the tube, that ran through the needle that was stuck inside of my arm. And she would stick it in. And when she stuck it in, she would, once she entered as deep as she could, she would have me try and flex whatever part of my arm that she had it in. And it would make a noise, it would give static. And I guess it was checking the electricity or the movement or electricity through those nerves to let them know what nerves were alive and what nerves were not, or what nerves were active and what nerves weren't. First time, I couldn't feel anything below this bicep. So when she stuck me from the fingertips all the way up, yeah, it hurt when she got up here. I was like, ah! I was also on a blood thinner at the time, so she couldn't stick me where she surprise stuck me the second time, which was in the back of my neck. Because like I say, that's where the brachial plexus nerve starts from, the cluster starts from, your spine. The second time I had it was just recently, a couple of months ago. And now I can feel all the way down to my wrist. Okay, I have movement, as you can see, slight movement in my hand with my fingers. I can feel light touch with this pinky now and with this ring finger, light touch. Okay, so with this particular injury, when she gave me the first nerve conduction test, when I couldn't feel anything below my bicep, she was not I'm not even gonna say she wasn't optimistic. Doctors aren't supposed to be optimistic. They go off, their job is to go off the science that they know, the studies and the practices they do. And she wasn't optimistic that I was ever gonna feel anything, let alone, they told me that a nerve heals either an inch or a half an inch a month. Okay. It had been a little less than a year, so let's say 9 months in between my nerve conduction tests. And then within those 9 months, I went from feeling from here up, from here all the way down to my wrist. It's a lot of inches. As you can see, I have a long arm. They're the same length. It's just this one doesn't straighten all the way. So that's a long way that it traveled in that short time that they weren't optimistic on. But a lot of Christians would say, or just people of faith would say, you know, the doctor says one thing, God says another. Okay, I'm in his hands and I'm in good care. And I thank my doctors for everything that they've done and that they're doing and that they may possibly do in the future. I don't know. Right now I'm seeing my hand therapist who sent me to my ortho doctor who recommended this hand specialist for me to get that nerve conduction test. He's taking looks at the results right now of that nerve conduction test to see if he can possibly do tendon transfer, or if my arm is viable for tendon transfer, which possibly might open my fingers up to where not only they might not be like this, but to where they at least are open a little bit more. Okay, with the movement. Because if my fingers were to open, you know, let's just say this far, with that movement that I have right now that you see, with this position, most stuff, it will be more normal, you know. Now, I got my life. You hear me? I'm breathing on my own. I'm hitting the gym almost every day. I'm working out every day, almost. I am down from 497 to currently, to this date, 355. I've lost over 140 pounds. Working out and eating right. And in prayer, honestly. And eating right can mean a multitude of things to a multitude of different people. I'll make another video soon on what my diet is and how I've lost 100 and I think it's almost 40. I don't know the math right now. It's almost 140 pounds from 497 to 355. My doctor said that the weight he wants me to shoot for is 300. I'm shooting for 250. If I get down to 250, I'll be back to what I was when I was in high school. I graduated in 2001. I'm old. But yeah, so I still have the drop foot. I have the airflow for that. I do have braces that I wear for my arm because, as you can see, there's a slight bend in my wrist. When I started with hand therapy, I couldn't even hold my wrist straight. My wrist was like this. I couldn't even hold my wrist up like that. It was just like this when I started hand therapy. Now, as you can see, I can hold it up and it's strong. And that's me holding it up myself. But I wear a brace that holds my wrist straight so that when I put the brace with these fingers to brace these fingers open a little bit to kind of just give them some kind of opening so that they don't stay drawn up like they are now, it's better to have it what's considered the neutral position like this. So I wear that brace like that. I'll wear the brace probably next time I do a video. But for now, that's pretty much what all happened to me. If I could think of anything in this video when I watch it back myself that I didn't say, I'll just put in the next video. Thank you all for listening, and hopefully I answer most of the questions that I get from most people about what happened to me. I'm very approachable about it, you know. I just wasn't really good at talking about it, and as you can see, it took me long to talk about it now. But I just needed to say that and get that out. So once again, thank you all for listening to me. Like I say, I'll give a spiritual version of what I went through and mental version of what I went through on another video. For now, I'm gonna say God bless. And thank you for listening. Any questions you may have, or any concerns, or any expressions, leave it in the comments. Appreciate it. God bless you all. Have a good day.